Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my recent 3-day fast and what I learned from not eating any food for 3 days. First, I'm going to talk about why people choose to do fasts, why I chose to do this one in particular, the different types of fasting, some of the benefits of fasting, and then I'm going to walk you guys through my whole experience. And everything that I learned so many lessons that I didn't even understand that I was going to learn from this fast. You know, you don't even realize how much you learn about yourself eating until you don't eat. It's kind of a weird concept. All right, so let's get started. One housekeeping item first I wanted to talk about. I actually changed the name of this channel. Some of you may be familiar with AR Awakened, and my Instagram handle was at AR Awakened, but I've just had this voice in my head over the past couple of weeks that's repeatedly telling me to change it back to my name, Ashley Rothstein, so I just listened to it and went for it. So I'm back to Ashley Rothstein, and my IG handle is at Ash Rothstein for anybody that is wondering the reason behind the change. Okay, so people fast a lot, and this is actually kind of a growing, I'm hesitant to use the word trend. I don't like using the word trend, but I'm seeing it rise in popularity. I actually didn't really know much about fasting until a couple of people from my community started reaching out to me about it. I started getting curious. I was first interested in a juice cleanse or fast, I guess, if you will, just basically only juicing for a couple of days because I hear the benefits of that. But then as I asked for some advice on my Instagram community from people who have experience with it or are seasoned juicers, a lot of them reached out to me and were like, you should try fasting. And I've been hearing about fasting here and there. You hear a lot of experts talk about it. You hear about the medicinal benefits. You kind of hear it being thrown around, but I've never really dove into it until this past week when people started reaching out to me about it. There's so many reasons that people fast. Some people do it to simply lose weight. Some people do it for spiritual reasons, to fight food addiction, to cure illnesses. Some people do it for spiritual reasons. Some people simply want to see if they can go without eating for 3 days, kind of like a challenge-based thing. I see so many different forms of intention. So there's definitely a lot of motivating factors behind doing a fast. For me, I personally wanted to do it to fight addiction around food and kind of see what came up in the 3 days that I didn't eat. I've been a person that has largely used food for escape pretty much my entire life. I'm an emotional eater, I'm a stress eater, and before, in the earlier years of my life, and even in recent years, probably up until about 2 to 3 years ago, I would just completely medicate with food. I mean, it's almost scary to look back on my awareness around food, or lack thereof, I should say. I would eat fast food all of the time. I mean, my husband and I joke that we used to eat like Baja Fresh like 4 or 5 times a week. I would like kick back, a burrito, rice, nachos, pints of ice cream, like 4 to 5 pints of ice cream a week. And I actually I'm surprised I was never like a very overweight person. I've always been active, and I've always kind of balanced it out with an active lifestyle, but I used to like eat my feelings. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Sometimes I would wake up and I would just wake up, and the first thing I would think about would be, what are you gonna eat today? How are you gonna make yourself happy? How are you going to give yourself that boost? What are you going to look forward to later? What can you have for dinner? What dessert are you going to have? And that would carry me throughout my days. And then I would basically medicate myself, heavy dinners, heavy desserts. and my body would just be so lethargic that I would basically pass out at the end of the day and wake up and do the same thing the next day. So I was never really dealing with any of my stressors or anything going on, and I had this terrible pattern. I remember one time, it's like so sad to think about, but one time I woke up in the morning, and it's so crazy to reminisce on this. I woke up in the morning and I remember just like walking downstairs, it was mindlessly walking downstairs. And I remember my parents, this is when I lived at home, my parents had like a box of donuts. And I kicked back like 4 or 5 full-size donuts without like almost knowing what I was doing, without even being aware I was eating the donuts. And then I just walked back upstairs and like went to sleep for the rest of the morning. It was, I was obviously dealing with I wasn't really dealing with some stuff. I was obviously going through some stuff and not really dealing with it because I was just mindlessly eating. One more little story that just came to mind that I feel called to share, that just came to my mind, was when I started to become aware of my food addiction. I remember really trying to not eat certain foods, foods that I know that I wanted to eat for the wrong reasons. And I remember my parents got a pizza one night from Domino's, and Domino's used to be my favorite. So they got a pizza, and I remember knowing they were gonna get the pizza, and then the pizza came there, and I was smelling it, and I was sitting there, and I was feeling so many things, like I wanted to eat the pizza so badly. And I remember going upstairs and being like, you're not gonna eat this pizza, you're not gonna eat this pizza. And I was telling myself over and over and over that I was not gonna eat this pizza. But I could not stop thinking about the pizza for like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours maybe. Could not stop thinking about the pizza. And I remember I went downstairs and I was like sitting in front of the fridge, and I was like, okay, you're not gonna eat the pizza, because the pizza was in the fridge by the time that, this whole cycle was happening. I was like, you're not gonna eat the pizza, you're not gonna eat the pizza. And I had this like war. I would go upstairs and downstairs and upstairs and downstairs. And finally I could not take the feelings in my body, the cravings, the hunger, not true hunger, but just the hunger to feed into the addiction, that I finally went downstairs and I got pizza. And I remember I took it back up to my room and I cried the whole time eating the pizza. And it was just really eye-opening. Like I was like, this is a problem. I am being controlled. This is not healthy at all. And that was really a transformational point for me to start diving deep into my food addiction. And over the past couple of years, I've actually been able to completely eliminate all major toxins. I don't eat gluten, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat processed sugar, I don't eat most grains. I basically eat a plant-based diet now. I do eat meat occasionally, ethically sourced meat. So that's very occasionally. I'm not a huge fan of meat, but I see the benefits for my body and B12 and other things I won't go into in this video. But I would say like 90 to 95% of the time eat a plant-based diet: vegetables, nuts, seeds, fruits, legumes, and some grains, usually just quinoa and occasionally rice. But with that being said, I still look forward to the taste of food and the pleasure that planning my food out brings me. I still look to food for an escape, and I've been feeling that very strongly lately. So that's what motivated me to try this fast and to see what came up. There's many types of fasting. The 2 biggest types, or the ones that I've at least seen, are prolonged fasting and intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is more popular. You see 3 common types. So this is when you eat food in a certain window every day, and then you don't eat food in another window of the day. So a common window or a common time ratio is 16 and 8. So that means you are eating for 8 hours of the day and you are fasting for 16 hours a day. Another one is 24. So 20 hours you're fasting, 4 hours you're eating. That's pretty intense. That's more of like a rapid weight loss. You really want to work something out kind of fast. And then there's the OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, and that's really intense. People just eat for 1 hour a day or 1 meal a day. OMAD, OMAD, 1 meal a day. And then you just fast the rest of the time. So that's a really intense thing, but people do it, but it's more rare. The more common is 16 and 8. So that's intermittent fasting. And then the prolonged fasts are when you don't eat food for a certain amount of time. So that being, 24-hour fast, 48, 72. Some people go for 5 days, 7 days, some even 2 weeks, and some people even go for much longer. There are well-documented 40-day fasts, which is pretty crazy. After not eating for 3 days, I cannot imagine not eating for 40 days, but people do it. We have the capability. And in the prolonged fast, there's a water fast and a dry fast, 2 different types. I did a water fast, but dry fast, you can probably intuitively figure out what that means. It means no water. So you're literally eating no food and you're not drinking water for a certain amount of time. It's very intense. Takes a lot of will to do a dry fast, but people do it and people see results. What I did in this fast, I will write exactly what I did in the description box in case anybody wants to know, but here's a little summary for you. So what I did was I did a water fast for 72 hours, 3 days, at about 9 o'clock. Don't do this. Do not start your fast really late at night, because then you eat really late at night on the last night and it's just not good for your digestion. But 9 o'clock, I had my last meal, and then the end of the 3rd day from that is when I broke my fast and I had my meal. I only drank water with a combination of salts. It's actually called the snake diet or snake juice. It basically has a combination of different salts that keep your electrolytes in balance. So it's like salt water. So I drank that solution. I tried to drink about 2 liters of it a day. Every day I came up short because it's a lot. It's like heavy. After you start drinking it for a while, you're just like, oh, just fuck my life. I don't want to drink this anymore. But I drank that. I drank some regular water. And then if I was really hungry, I drank a warm 8-ounce glass of water with apple cider vinegar and lemon to curb some hunger. I'm obviously thinking about food. To curb some hunger. So I had that. But that was it for 3 days. And let me see, what else do I want to say? I think that's it. Yeah, so I will write that in the description box for anybody who wants to follow exactly what I did. The first day, I actually only did the apple cider vinegar and lemon water all day. I wouldn't recommend that. The next day I did the salts, and that was a game changer. So I would start with the salt water if you are starting a 72-hour fast, fresh and clean. Okay. Before I get into my experience, I want to quickly talk about the benefits of fasting. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I haven't done much research and I don't have any hard facts and science and statistics and studies and things for you guys. But the overwhelming knowledge I've received from seasoned fasters in my community and just people who know what they're talking about, and the articles that I've read and the blogs and the medical research I've read, it is astounding. So when you fast, what happens is all that energy that your digestive system is typically expending to digest your food, it goes into repairing your body and repairing your cells. So I believe it's called autophagy. I used to say autophagy, or I don't even know what I used to say, but I heard somebody say autophagy recently. So I think that's how you say it, but I'm not sure. So, so it basically ramps up your cell repair and your cell regeneration. And especially after the 48-hour mark in a water fast, so 48 to 72 hours, your autophagy goes up by 300%. So the rate of your cell repair and cell regeneration. So your body is literally healing itself extremely rapidly. People do this to reverse illnesses. I've heard of it reversing or stopping the growth of tumors. This can actually kick you into ketosis as well, which is a very reparative, or no, a very regenerative state your body is in to heal. It improves your energy so much because you're not expending all of that energy on your digestive system. Instead, I felt like incredible brain surges and focus. And also it helps with taking a step back to observe yourself with food addiction, like I talked about, and emotions that come up because you cannot give in to the impulse to eat. Oftentimes, most of the time, we completely suppress our emotions with food, and we're not even aware that we're doing this. So we get an impulse, or we get an emotional reaction or feeling, or something comes up for us, and subconsciously we just grab to food. But now in this window, you cannot act on that impulse. If you commit to it, if you commit to doing the fast, you can't act on the impulse to eat. So instead, you're forced to sit there and feel what your body's going through, what your mind is going through. And it's amazing for emotional healing. I don't know why people don't talk about that with fasting a lot. A lot of the stuff I hear with fasting is linked to weight loss, but it's just a complete cleansing and regenerating function of your body. I'm gonna get into my experience because I am working on making these videos a little bit shorter, and for some reason I can never seem to do that because I just love talking and sharing and storytelling, and but I am going to try to keep this short and concise. All right, so like I said, I told you my why I wanted to do the fast, and I reached out on my Instagram community and asked for some advice around juicing. A lot of people approached me and said, hey, try this fast. I did this research, and I had a couple people that really held my hand through the process. I'm so grateful for them. I probably would not have been able to make it through this without them, but they held my hand throughout the process. So I decided I was going to do the fast, and the day before I did not prepare well because I actually kind of decided this last minute. I felt like this was a good idea because if I would have, like I told you in my psychedelic video, if you watched my psychedelic experience, I don't think it's a good idea for me. I'm realizing more and more to put a lot of preparation and research into things. I'm finding more value in getting, good referrals or a good support system that already knows what they're doing and already has their research, and then kind of going off that, but making a change somewhat impulsively because I feel like I just need to go into it, because if I overthink it, I'm just either not going to do it or I'm just going to work myself up into a frenzy. So I decided to basically do it the day before I did it. Woke up, actually had my last meal, which was really dumb. I had a meal of sweet potatoes and eggs at 4:30 the night before my fast, or the night I started my fast, if you will. And then at 9 o'clock, I was like, I'm gonna start tomorrow, so I'm just gonna have blueberries. So I just had some freaking blueberries and cacao nibs and honey, and it didn't even fill me up, and I was hungry 30 minutes later, but I had those at 9, so then I was forced to extend my fast on the third night until 9 instead of 4:30, which was really annoying, because by the third day I was like, give me food. So I just would not do that if I was you. I would start your fast earlier than later. But I started it at 9, went to sleep, kind of a little nervous, but I woke up the next day very motivated. I made my salt water, and no, I did not. That is a lie. I started with apple cider vinegar water and lemon water, and I pretty much drank that throughout the day. And I was feeling good. I was feeling hungry. I was noticing how many times I had the impulse to eat, but I couldn't. And I was like, wow, I think about food all day. It's all I think about. It was cool because you don't have to prepare anything, so you have more time, right? You don't have to prepare food or anything, but it's crazy to think about how much you think about food. And so I went on along with my day, and then I was feeling good. I was feeling a little tired, but more hungry, hunger pains, but I was I'm motivated, I'm gonna keep going. And then nighttime fell, and I typically get anxiety at night anyway, so this was not new for me, but I realized that I was getting super anxious, and I started getting these thoughts of dying. And this is actually a common theme amongst fasters. One of my friends that was helping me through this whole process, he said he got the same thing. And his thought behind this, so this is what would happen. I would get thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, my body's gonna fail me, what am I doing? I'm hungry, like I'm not doing something right. And then I would get this like hunger, and I would like fall into the hunger, and I just didn't feel good. And then I would get this crazy surge of anxiety, like almost panic, like my heart would pound and stuff. And he has a theory that the body is trying to get itself to eat, or the mind is working with the body to try to get itself to eat. So what it's doing is it's going to taunt you with scary thoughts that you would normally give into when eating, to entice itself to eat. So it's like a series of little tests that I got throughout my whole fast, but this was the first one. So I got this overwhelming feeling, and he helped me work through it, which was great. But it was really scary, and I was like, oh gosh, here we go. It's like 3 days, already the first night. Holy shit, all right, okay. So I worked through that evening, and then I tried to lay down to sleep. I laid down about 9, and then I got about 30 minutes of sleep, and I like woke up, and I was awake until 2. I had crazy energy. I was so focused. I was like, I could get used to this, but I don't even know how I'm gonna sleep. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna be tomorrow, right? But I was like up on my Instagram, responding to comments, talking to people, working on emails, just doing other research, reading articles. Like, I was up until 2. I had crazy energy. I was fighting it a little bit at first, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna allow it. So I finally went to sleep about 2, got about 5 hours of solid sleep, woke up the next morning, 7:30, felt great. I started on my salt water that day, so I did the salt water solution, and I felt great throughout the day. I had so much energy. I remember I was calling like my family, calling my husband. I even told my boss, I was like, everybody needs to fast. This energy is insane. This brain power is insane. Like, I'm loving everything. Like, this is what ketosis feels like. I had a hunch I was in ketosis. I didn't actually test myself with the ketone strips, but I just assumed. I still don't know, but I just had so much energy. And I was just so excited. I was like, this is great. Like, the rest of the fast is gonna be great if I'm gonna feel like this. Like, it's downhill. And then night fell again, and obviously this seems to be a common theme with me, that nighttime induces anxiety, and I got the same sort of feelings, the same tests, and I got the surges of anxiety, the fears of death, except for unlike the night before, what I did was I actually fell into one of them. I was like, okay, this is coming for a reason. Let me see what happens. This took a lot of courage to do, because it's not fun to just fall into the abyss of your pain. But I laid there because I was so sick of feeling the panic and overwhelming anxiety in my body that I just fell into it. And I started getting all of these flashbacks of my past, all of these flashbacks relating to my dad's addiction, which plays a large role in what has shaped me to be the person I am today. And I started getting all these flashbacks, but for the first time ever, I used to get flashbacks of just me almost in a victim state in my dad's addiction. For the first time ever, I got flashbacks of me feeling myself and my body and my emotions in the flashbacks. And I was hating myself for how I was treating my dad, because now I understand all the pain that he was going through and all the pain that he has that contributed to his addiction. I had a whole new lens, and I saw myself hating him ignorantly, and I hated myself for hating him. And it was the brand new realization, and the first time I had ever seen that, and I just wept. I broke down in tears. I was just like, you know, the crying when you're like I was just weeping. And I was like releasing all of this just trauma and pain and just a lot of stuff. I was releasing it. And after that, I felt so much better. I was like, wow, like this is what was supposed to happen. This was the emotion that I was probably suppressing with food that came up for me that I could have kind of pushed away now, but instead I dove into it and I had a huge release. So that was great. I felt a lot better, but then as the night continued to go on, the thoughts of death kept consuming me. And as I laid down that night, I was horrid. I couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding. It was like, doot, 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 doot. I did that on my Instagram video and a lot of people liked that, so I just decided to do it again. But my heart was pounding and I just felt like I was gonna die if I relaxed. That's the best way to put it. I felt like if I surrendered and let control and I allowed myself to relax, my body was just gonna fail me and die. I don't even know why I felt this way, because there's been well-documented fasts that were much longer than that period that I was already in. I was at about 48 hours at this point, but my body just would not allow itself to relax. You know, I would feel like I was trying to practice self-love. I took a bath, I meditated, I would just breathe with myself. I put my hand on my heart and my stomach and I was breathing, and I would start to surrender. But then as soon as I would surrender a little bit, it would bring me back to my heart, because as soon as I relaxed, I would be like, I'm dying right now. I am letting go, so I am dying, and my body's gonna fail, and my husband's gonna find me in the morning dead, and I'm gonna like show up on Yahoo News like, you know, new fasting trend kills, you know, girl. And I was just like, I was freaking out about it. And so that night was just horrid. It was horrible anxiety, probably some of the darkest versions of it I've ever experienced. But I finally made it to sleep, and I got about 7 solid hours after I finally made it to sleep. So then I woke up feeling fantastic. So it was another realization of like, okay, this was in your mind. It was not your body failing you. I overcame that hurdle. It was all in your mind. And it made me realize how powerful the mind really is. So I woke up the next day, and honestly, by this point, I was so over it. I was like, I just want to eat. I was so excited I was going to eat later that day, but I was just over it. I was tired. I was impatient the whole day. I was really grumpy. I think I snapped at my husband like really intensely, like way more ignorantly than I do ever. And I was just like, please excuse the hangriness. And even a couple times that day, he was like, I'm hungry, like himself. And I was like, screw you, dude. But anyway, I kind of made it through that day. I've journaled a lot. I'm going to share with you guys my journal notes in a second, because there's so many realizations I made, but I just want to walk you through my experience first. So I kind of made it through the day. Of course I did. I made it through the day. And then my husband went and got me all my favorites. So I had my legumes stocked, my chickpeas and my lentils. Oh, one thing, I was insanely craving lentils the whole fast. And this made me realize that I think my body was craving the nutrients. I was not craving them for the taste or for the release, for the short-term pleasure. It was for the nourishment that they made me feel. And that was huge. That was a brand new realization. So I was like, could not stop thinking about lentils. So my husband went, he got me Urban Remedy bowls, my favorite, some siete chips and tortillas, some fresh organic fruit, some sweet potatoes, cilantro, onion, garlic, other vegetables I love. So he had the fridge stocked for me. So I was ready to go. Already planned my first break fast meal was going to be strawberries, grapes, and lentils and ghee with some spices. So excited. So I was looking forward to that. And then as it got closer, like 2, 3, 4 hours before my fast, I started getting really freaking anxious. I was like really jittery. I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I just kept thinking, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I'm like going to die before I can eat, and that's going to be a tragedy. But I kept thinking, I'm not going to make it. But I ended up making it to the point of cooking my food. And I started to cook my food, and I kind of, zoned into it, and I got excited. I was super anxious because I was just like, I was anticipating eating. I realized in this moment, when I was going through this anxiety, that how anxious I am normally when I eat, and how I have so much anxiety around food. And one of my friends that was coaching me through the whole fasting experience, he called this like finishing anxiety. I hadn't eaten for 3 days, so I was sitting there like, okay, how is my body going to react to food? How is my stomach going to react to food? And it made me realize that I actually have these thoughts before every single meal that I'm eating on a micro level, on a subconscious level, but they were just slapping me in the face because I hadn't eaten for 3 days. So I was getting so anxious, like so full of panic, when my food was done, I made my food around, it was done about 8:30. So my husband made me my whole little fruit platter. I had grapes and strawberries and nuts and apples. And then I made my lentil and ghee spiced dish, which was awesome, by the way. But I made that and it was ready by 8:30. So I remember I was just sitting there on the couch waiting to eat for the next 30 minutes. I was just like sitting there like this, like just, like I was so like being flooded with panic. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to die before I get to eat. And so I made it to 9, obviously. I made it to 9 and it was weird. Like I was so hungry that day. I was looking forward to food. I was, feeling all the cravings. I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna eat this. But then as soon as the food was in front of me, I was like, I'm just like, I don't even crave it anymore. It was like such a weird feeling. But I realized as I started to eat, I had never mindfully ate anything in my life before, because I grabbed the food, I looked at the strawberries, I looked at the grapes, and I put one by one in my mouth, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling my body for the first time. The food went into my stomach and I was feeling my stomach and I was feeling my body and I was feeling it kind of fill up. And, I had the lentils very slowly. I tasted them, I chewed them, and it showed me that I had never really eaten anything mindfully in my life, which was a crazy realization. So I finished that meal very slowly. I was very timid, very anxious. I didn't eat a lot. I probably had less than a cup of food total. But then the coolest part about this was as soon as the food settled, maybe like 10, 15 minutes later, as it sort of started to settle in my stomach felt like mine again. I realized a lot of the fear I was holding the past couple days or the prior days was because my stomach felt foreign, because it felt so empty. And we're not used to our stomachs feeling that empty because they're never just completely empty of food. So my stomach feeling full again, it was a brand new sensation that I had almost lost perception of in the prior days. And I went to sleep with that feeling and I felt so nourished. And I remember just laying in bed, and I passed out for I think 10 and a half hours. I slept the whole night that night. I slept pretty well. I slept very well, actually. But then the next day I woke up and my whole relationship with food almost changed because I realized, so I set the intention before the end of my fast that I was going to do the intermittent fasting that I was talking about earlier, the 16 and 8. So I was going to eat in an 8-hour time frame. So I was going to eat between 10 and 6. So I had to wait the next morning then to eat again until 10. And I woke up and I felt the impulse to eat right when I woke up, and it was hard to wait until 10. And I was like, wow, I just wake up and eat without even thinking about it. I'm not even conscious when I'm eating. I'm not like, okay, making my food, this is going to be my meal, this is what I'm going to eat, and now I'm going to sit here and enjoy it. I just, what do you want to call it? What's the expression? Is it like beeline right to the pantry? I don't even know, but you probably know what I'm talking about. I go right to the pantry or right to the fridge and I just go for it in the morning without even thinking, mindless. So I had to wait until 10. I had my Urban Remedy bowl, my vegan Caesar salad, and I remember I was eating it. Actually, it was a macro bowl. That's not important. But I was eating my macro bowl, and I realized that I started out eating mindfully. I mixed it all up. I looked at it. I put all the bites in my mouth, and I was tasting it. But then my mind started to drift away. And then I stopped and I started to forget that I was eating. And then I was in some other mental place, I don't even know where, thinking about things, and started thinking about stressful things. And then all of a sudden the stressors started going faster, and then the faster I started eating. And then pretty soon I remember I was just eating really quickly, and my mind, I just snapped out of it, and I was like, oh shit, Ashley, bring yourself back. And I went through that 4 or 5 times in that feeding session. And I was like, I realized, I'm like, where the hell have I been eating all of my life? Where have I been? I realized that I wasn't even aware, and I was eating in some meals, sometimes until halfway through the meal. We're not even conscious that we are eating a meal. We are so conditioned to just suppress our emotions with food. and we are conditioned to overeat. So this was another thing the first day after the fast. I ate from about 10 to 2. I had like one meal and one bigger snack. I think I had some fruit, some Siete chips, and I think that was it. But I felt nourished for days, and then it made me realize, holy shit, we are completely conditioned to be overfed. We eat way too much. This breakfast, lunch, and dinner thing is total conditioning. It is not what our bodies require at all. And it was scary because I was like, I feel like I don't know, I just feel like I have been misinformed my entire life. And it was funny, I approached one of the friends that was helping coach me through this process, and I told him, like, I just ate for a couple hours and I feel like I should not eat the rest of the day. I feel nourished and fed. And he was like, congratulations, you have broken through the programming of food. And I told him, we were laughing because I felt like he was Mr. Miyagi and I was Daniel, and I was just like, I learned my lesson, like, but yeah, it was crazy. So then I was like, I got all this, confidence. I was like, I'm going to do the 24 diet. So 20 hours fasting, 4 hours not. So then I tried that for one day, and that was through yesterday morning. And I realized that was too much for me. It was too intense. I was a little too deprived. I woke up like really hungry. So I'm going to do the 16-8, and I'm going to see how that works for me, and I'm going to do my best to mindfully eat. I still lose my mind when I'm eating. It still goes off, and I forget that I'm eating, and I have to bring myself back. But this was a huge, huge awareness exercise, challenge, if you will, whatever you want to call it. I am so grateful that I did this fast because I saw myself outside of food, and I saw my impulses for food, and I saw societal's conditioning around food. I saw how overfed we are. I learned what my body can handle. I learned how resilient my body is. It didn't eat for 3 days. And when I actually ended up eating the next day, superhuman energy. I felt like a newborn baby. I felt regenerated. I felt healed. I felt repaired. My brain felt amazing. I just felt great, and I can see why so many people fast. I want to get my journal now. I wrote down some stuff. I think I talked about a lot of it already, but I want to make sure I cover everything that I wanted to talk about. I don't really feel like reading through all of this right now, to be honest, but I'm going to do that real quick. Understanding. Yeah, short-term versus long-term reward. I don't need to control my body as much as I thought that I did. So you guys have probably heard me talk about before about how I like to control everything and how I need to hydrate at a certain time and I need to eat certain meals to make sure that I'm feeding myself correctly and nourishing myself correctly. I was way overdoing it. It was empowering to understand how little the body actually needs to function, but what it gets in surplus if you feed it the proper nutrients and if you nourish it and if you give it vegetables and plants and very healthy things. It was empowering to learn how little it needs, because then I can understand how much I'm like overly controlling it and trying to control myself and my body and everything around that, and how my mind just feels like it has a hold on it when it really shouldn't have to. I was going through intense highs, intense lows. If you go through a fast, I would advise you to write everything down. There are so many things that I wanted to write down, but I didn't because people call it keto brain. I don't know what you call it, but like your brain is very focused, but you lose things. You don't have a hold on them. There's really not a lot of traction. Something comes and you're like, oh, it's a profound thought. It goes like 2 seconds later. So I would advise everybody to write stuff down. Another thing, you keep thinking that you're hungry, but it's really not hunger. It's your emotions surfacing in a way that makes you feel like you're hungry, even though, you technically are hungry, you're starving, but your body can go so much longer without it. So it's almost like I was talking about, like a taunting way that it makes you want to eat. It entices you to eat. It's pretty freaking insane. The mind is insane the way it works with the body. It tries to get you to do things. I had a lot of thoughts of death. And the last day, another thing I didn't really talk about, I really felt like I was in a compromised state. I felt so weak, so fragile, and it was actually very eye-opening to be in this state, because you feel very fragile, but your mind keeps pointing you back to all of the research, like, you're okay. It's your mind making you believe that you're so fragile. And of course, this is a new state for your body. Of course, you're shocking your body. It's not used to not eating for 3 days. So there is a fragility factor to it, but the mind can make it so much worse than it actually is. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, and the days after, you realize hunger versus cravings. So you understand when your body's actually hungry versus when it's just craving something to stress eat, and you can easily differentiate the two. So many times we actually mistakenly call our cravings hunger. So we're craving something and you think, God, I'm so hungry right now. Trust me, fast for 3 days and then you'll understand what hunger is. And also you realize when you're eating, when you get the cues to stop. So you start paying attention to more of the subtleties of your body. When I'm eating now, I used to way overeat because my mind would be in a certain place, right? And your mind is almost gone. You've exited your body. So you're not listening to your body cues when you're eating to stop eating. And then that's why we overeat. That's why we eat 2, 3, 4, sometimes way more than that, times the amount that we should be eating, is because we're eating to curb emotion and our mind is somewhere else and we're not listening to our body. So when you're mindfully eating, you learn to listen to your body and the cues that it gives you to stop eating. And I've actually been able to pick up on these cues after this fast. Yeah, and one more thing that was actually, last thing, I have a lot of thoughts in here about myself, but I don't feel called to share them all because, everybody has a unique journey, and everybody has their own realizations, and I don't know if every single thing in this book would necessarily help all of you. But the one last thing I wanted to talk about, I feel like the frame is like really weird. I feel like this is too tilted. I'm gonna tilt it up. Maybe not. I don't know. Whatever. But, I used to love eggs. I ate eggs a lot, but what was interesting is about a year ago, they actually showed up on a food sensitivity test for me, both the yolk and the whites, but I continue to eat them because I just love them so much. I actually recently discovered a couple months ago over easy eggs. I've only eaten scrambled prior, but I loved over easy eggs, so I would eat them like once a day, almost every day. But after this fast, I should rewind. In the last couple months, even though I love whatever that means, eggs, the taste, the texture, whatever you want to call it, I've been having this inkling that they're not sitting well with me and they're not serving me. And that's a really intense way to say something about food, but I've just had this thought that, like, I don't know, eggs just don't really agree with me. And then they showed up on the food sensitivity test, but I'm like, I like them, so I'm gonna keep having them. But after this fast, I'm almost repulsed by eggs. 72 hours of not eating, I look at the eggs in the fridge and I'm just like, oh, I just cannot imagine eating eggs. I just don't want to eat eggs. I have no desire for eggs, and I ate them every single day. So it's really crazy what your body can do when it detoxes itself and it cleans some stuff out, and it's really amazing what it can show you. I'm so grateful for this fast and what it showed me. One of my friends that was also coaching me through the fast, another one of them, he recommended doing an enema like a couple hours before I ended. I did not end up doing that because I just did not have the willpower to withstand, putting a stick up my butt when I was feeling like shit, for lack of a better way to explain it. But I could see the benefit in it because it's further detoxification when you're already detoxifying so much. So yes, that is my experience. I hope that some or all of that helped you. If you have any questions or any questions about the fasting experience, my experience, if you want any recommendations, any good articles, because I've done a lot of research, whatever it is, reach out to me in the comments, send me an email, DM me on IG, whatever works for you. I love sharing experiences and knowledge and learning, you know, from one another. That's one of the reasons why I started this community. So yeah, this was a bit of an unexpected video because I didn't know I was going to be doing this last week. So next week I'll probably, I plan to, unless something else comes up, I plan to start talking about some concepts. One is I'm really interested in the concepts of the ideology. I'm actually not huge on ideologies, or I don't support ideologies because I feel like they promote separation. So that's something I'm really doing some research on right now. Jordan Peterson, love him. He is someone I really look up to, and his work is the basis of my research. But I think I'm gonna start doing some videos on that. I did get a recommendation on some shadow work, so I'm looking into some content around that, as well as the experience of ending my friendship with someone I called, as a label, my best friend for 23 years. Someone actually gave me a recommendation for that. So I'm trying to work some content in. I only do one video a week, so bear with me if it takes a little bit longer for me to incorporate some of the suggestions in, but I hear them all and I write them all down and I do my best to incorporate them. So with that being said, I think that is all for me today, but I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. Sincerely, I really mean that, and I hope you can feel that, even though I can't jump through the screen and tell you. I really appreciate you. So thank you again for listening and your attention, and I will see you next time.